Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men Annual number 10, cover dated 1986. So this cover by Art Adams and Terry Austin, who also handle the interior art, featuring a pastiche homage to the cover of Giant Size X-Men number 1 by Gil Kane. And here we have the New Mutants in their graduation costumes bursting through the page. And we've got the X-Men reduced to infant status, watching on in shock. And here at the bottom right hand corner, we've got a little caption and an inset of Longshot introducing the newest X-Man, Longshot. So this issue, or this annual rather, follows on from New Mutants Annual number 2, which was drawn by Alan Davis and introduced Psylocke to the X-Men mythos. And so this is a continuation in many ways of that story. And it further explores what Psylocke's relation to the X-Men might be. And in terms of continuity and how this fits into continuity with the parent Uncanny X-Men comic title, there's some controversy and debate about that, but it probably fits in between Uncanny X-Men number 210 and 211, which marked the official start of Mutant Massacre, because in this issue we've got an uninjured Kitty Pryde and Colossus. So it has to take place before Uncanny X-Men 211. So let's open this up to the splash page, which features the X-Men versus Magneto. Has he reverted to classic villain form? No, it's a training exercise in the Danger Room. And the title of this story is Performance, and the creative team: Chris Claremont, writer; Arthur Adams, penciler; Terry Austin, inker; Petra Scotese, colorist; Tom Orzechowski, letterer. So we've got Colossus doing a fastball special there, throwing Wolverine at Magneto. Of course, Magneto, master of magnetism, able to deflect Wolverine because of his adamantium lace bones. And we've got Nightcrawler there in a cage, and Storm baffled by this trap, and Kitty and Rogue getting ready to get involved. So let's continue. So Nightcrawler and Wolverine execute a move together, but Magneto deals with it. Then we've got this DeLuca effect here of Storm jumping through these obstacles, which are under Magneto's command, and then basically distracting Magneto so that Shadowcat can come up through the platform he's standing on. But he's wise to her and he jumps off. And then he turns around to handle Rogue and Colossus by pulling the metallic floor up to act as a shield as they launch punches directed at him. So he laughingly says, "A most unsatisfactory performance, X-Men. Let us begin again." And then our focus switches to the control booth, where we've got Psylocke on the controls with Cypher, and we've got Sunspot there as well. And this is an important little conversation where Sunspot is dismissive of the X-Men's performance against their headmaster, Magneto. "Pathetic," he says. "By what right are they X-Men and not us?" And Doug here says, "They're older, Bobby. They've been here longer." And Sunspot says, "That isn't fair, so what else is new?" So we're going to see an opportunity for the New Mutants later on in this issue to graduate and become X-Men in the emergency that occurs. And here we've got Psylocke wondering about maybe what her place is in Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, with the novices as a student or among the X-Men. And now we switch scenes to Mojoworld. And we have the spineless ones watching what's going on in the Danger Room on this giant screen, and they're delighted. And Mojo, who is the master entrepreneur, director, is delighted with the popularity of the show he's putting on. And how is he getting these images beamed to Mojoworld? Well, via the cameras, bionic cameras implanted or actually in Betsy's bionic eyes, because in previous continuity, in Alan Davis's last issue of Captain Britain, the Marvel UK comic, Slaymaster put out Betsy Braddock's eyes. And in New Mutants Annual #2, she's blind at the start, but she gets replacement eyes, courtesy of Mojo. And of course, you know, the gift is a type of curse as well, and is beaming, transmitting everything she sees. It's not only just what she sees, we're told that it is her also what she feels as well. Here we go. Or maybe it's not in these captions, but in any case, it's everything she feels, sees, hears. All of her senses are transmitted via the bionic eyes. So we've got Spiral here watching too, and Major Domo, who is Mojo's secretary, oftentimes sarcastic. And so Mojo's watching the arena from his platform, and he says of himself that he's an artiste, and he's looking for a new concept, something else to do to up ratings. And he says here, wondrous as these X creatures are on film, think how much more exciting it would be to have them here performing live and in person. A brilliant concept, because it's mine, as they soon shall be. And so he touches this button, and what does he set in motion? Well, if we continue, we will see. So back in the danger room, there is a sphere of energy plasma that appears in the midst of the danger room. Wolverine's claws extend by themselves. Colossus reverts from armored to human form, and out of the plasma ball emerges this figure, and it turns out to be Longshot. And he is alive but unconscious, and Nightcrawler says that he's found his pulse, both of them, because Longshot has two hearts. And Psylocke runs in with the medical kit, but by doing that, she gets exposed to this ectoplasm, and we'll see what the effects of that are shortly. And she notes too, or thinks that regarding Longshot, that his face, he's so beautiful, and that's one of Longshot's powers, whereby he has this kind of charm effect on women, and we'll see that pan out as well a little later on. So of course, Longshot, coming from Ann Nocenti and Art Adams' miniseries from a year previous, and the last that he was seen was taking off from Earth to go to Mojoworld to liberate Mojoworld. So something has happened in the meantime, and evidently he was recaptured, and as it turns out, his mind and memories wiped by Mojo. So Douglas in the control booth asks for a sample of the ectoplasmic goop, and Nightcrawler's getting ready to teleport some into him, but then it disappears. So everything is gone, not a trace of it left in the danger room at all whatsoever. And Betsy's got a bad feeling, as she says to Wolverine, it feels as though the devil is dancing on her grave. So she's got an intuition that the devil that is Mojo may be up to something, but she doesn't explain that quite to Wolverine. So then it's the next day, a new day dawns. Very nice work here by Art Adams and Terry Austin rendering the X-Mansion. You can't really see it so well in this colored printing, but in the black and white Essentials edition, you can see Terry Austin's inks here, very fine stippling here on the forest in the background. Yeah, very fine line work in this double-sized annual from Terry Austin, and complementing Art Adams' style extremely well. So Storm wakes up in her attic with all her plants around her. This one strategically covering her naked body as she puts on her dressing gown robe, and discovers that it's a bit too big for her. A mystery that will be solved very shortly. Somebody cries out, and it's Ileana, Kitty's roommate, and Kitty has shrunk and de-aged, as it turns out, and Lockheed here is standing guard over her. So Storm enters, and then everybody recognizes that she's shorter than usual. As Cannonball says, she's got young Bobby. She looks near Danny and my age. And Wolverine's de-aged. All of the X-Men and Magneto who were in the Danger Room have de-aged. Interesting little bit of character work here. Warlock and Cypher, and Warlock aping Cypher's body language. We'll see that throughout, so that's careful work by Art Adams throughout. Then we've got this great top-down shot of both the X-Men and New Mutants in their school uniforms, so to speak. And we have this diagnosis that's going on by Cypher, in showing up here on screen the difference in size and age between the X-Men currently and how they should be, so as to prove it to the X-Men. But something is going on whereby psychologically the X-Men believe nothing's changed. As Wolverine says here, nothing's changed. Brats were the same as ever, but he's reverted to the age and attitude of an adolescent. And here we've got like Rogue and Kitty falling in love with Longshot, and this kind of cartoonish notation with the love hearts and stars, and then we've got the New Mutants wondering what to make of all the weirdness. And Doug says there, all this weirdness started with that guy's arrival, but Bobby and I were present too. Why weren't we affected? Because you didn't get any of the ectoplasm on you, that's why. So Doug decides to investigate the Danger Room a little more with Warlock, but Warlock is frightened, alarmed to enter because he has detected traces of the transmode virus. Doug proposes that they merge again, and Warlock warns him about overdoing the merging, that Doug will become infected by the transmode virus and will no longer be human. But Cypher says the X-Men need our help, is my choice, my risk, and so they merge. And we get his point of view where he's got this enhanced senses, as he says here. He does love seeing the world through Warlock's eyes. It's like the rest of my life, I'm mostly asleep. And what they note here is energy patterns that are residue of Technarch transmode virus. But it's not the Magus. Probable, or the origin of basic technology is Warlock's homeworld, but the final product has been extensively modified, analogous to customized software programming, because of course Mojo has worked on the virus for his own purposes. And then we switch back to the infirmary and the ongoing love fest for Longshot. And we'll see that play out in the Outback era, where there's a little bit of a rivalry between Rogue and Dazzler for Longshot's affections. And Psylocke's mind scan reveals the creature responsible for their regression and where to find him. That's Mojo. And we'll see that where he is in Central Park, so they make to exit, but Mirage and the New Mutants block their way. Mirage saying this may not be the smartest move you guys can make, but Magneto uses his powers on them to knock them out, and then they take Professor X's Rolls Royce into the city. But ongoing is their regression to infant state. And an indication of that here is that Kitty has an accident as she's going back to the age of a toddler in the back of the car. And let's see them then arrive in Central Park at night. And they're met by a couple of NYPD on horseback. But what's happened at this point is that the younger X-Men have lost their powers because they have regressed below the age at which mutant powers generally manifest, which is adolescence. But because Magneto's older, he's still got his power, which he uses to send this blast of steam to baffle and blind the cops. And then the X-Men make their exit, and they go straight towards, as it turns out, Delacorte Stadium in Central Park. There's a light show there that's entrancing them, but because they've reverted to children, they've become incredibly childish, and they start fighting with each other. We've got scrapping going on here. Great cartooning by Art Adams on this page in particular, and in these panels. But when Storm says that she's going to leave them behind, they snap to and come after her to the Delacorte Theatre in Central Park. And they struggle now to get into the theatre. It's locked. Magneto's lost his powers. He's reverted to pre-adolescent childhood. But Wolvie still has his claws. But Storm's picked the lock. So in they go. And who is waiting for them? Except for Mojo, yes. And they're ready to come in and play. And great use of color here to denote the light show here that's entrancing them. And then just this switch to the silhouetted demonic grinning face of Mojo. Really nicely done. And then we go back to the X-Mansion, and Lockheed pulling at Danny Moonstar's hair, waking her up. And she hears knocking on the door, and it's the NYPD reporting Professor X's Rolls Royce that they've found in the city. And they ask her to call New York. And then once she's dealt with the cops, she slides to the ground. And then when the New Mutants have recovered from being zapped by Magneto, she goes and uses Cerebro to try and track the X-Men, but can't get a bead on them. And that's because, of course, they've reverted to childhood ages, where Cerebro won't be able to find them because they don't have their powers anymore, as Doug surmises. So now what to do? And they go up to it looks like Storm's attic, and this chest, and inside, what do they have except their graduation costumes? Because as Danny says, for tonight and maybe the rest of our lives, but she thinks, oh great spirit, I hope not, I pray not, we are the X-Men. So we've got the different costumes here. Let me know in the comments what you think about these costumes. I expect designed by Art Adams. Not really a fan of them. I think certain people do like Magic's costume here, and it does look decent. They also like Magma's. That looks decent enough. Cypher, that's appalling. And Cannonball's somewhat similar to what Rob Liefeld would design for him towards the end of the New Mutants and X-Force. Reigns here, forgettable. So not really loving these costume designs. Let me know what you think about them in the comments. And then Magic uses her sorceress powers to teleport them to Central Park. But Spiral intervenes, as it turns out, and twists her portal right to the stage of the Delacorte Theatre. And you can just see her in the background, body shop. So that's Spiral's body shop. that featured in Uncanny X-Men 205 when Lady Deathstrike had her body transformed, and featured again in Uncanny X-Men 209 when Rachel Phoenix was lured to the Delacorte Theatre and lured away to Mojoworld by Spiral. So here's Spiral again atop this platform way above the stage, and we have got her reviewing everyone. And just a point to note here, in the body shop you have got a mannequin here that has Rachel's choker, hair, and hound markings. So very interesting, that. And we've got this representation of a priest here holding up a crucifix as well. Kind of indicative for me of exorcism, I think. So there's something demonic about these bargains that are struck and deals made in the body shop for transformations. And what we see is what has become of the de-aged X-Men. They're coming back to adult age, and they are in a set of new costumes as well, and they have been inculcated, indoctrinated, brainwashed by Mojo and Spiral, and they now work for Mojo. So this is Mojo's show where we're going to have the X-Men versus the New Mutants. And here we've got some fun stuff going on in the background. We've got the audience in the theatre who came to see Shakespeare's Comedy of Errors. And so we've got Ann Nocenti's Brat Pack here. And we're going to have other cameos in the audience as well. So Spiral put some pixie dust over the audience so that they stay, nobody leaves. Till the final curtain drops. So they're stuck there. And here we have Walter, do you hear croaking? Be real wheezy. You think frogs go to the theatre? So we've got Louise Simonson here and Walt Simonson, who had in recent issues of Thor transformed Thor into a frog. And we've got these frogs from those issues as well, Puddle Gulp and Queen Greensong. And we've got this fun editorial note from Ann Nocenti on the frogs' dialogue, spoken in the language of the beasts, comprehensible to those with ears to hear, by Ann Nocenti there. And here we have it, the X-Men facing off against New Mutants, with Colossus first out of the traps, Wolverine coming up here. Interesting to note too that Magneto has been put in a Nazi uniform, soldier's uniform, which is pretty grim in terms of bringing out that dark side of Magneto, who was an inmate of Auschwitz. And we've got Storm with her powers once again, just as in the previous annual, X-Men Annual number 9. And yeah, so the older X-Men, Magneto, Storm and Wolverine are in full possession of their powers once again. And you've got this grotesque kind of Mojo mask over Wolverine's head here. So that's pretty weird. And otherwise, he's more or less naked, reduced to a bestial state by Mojo. So then the fight begins, and Magneto takes Warlock out pretty easily. And then we've got Psylocke going after Mirage, and Rain tackled by Nightcrawler, Kitty, and Colossus here. And Illyana facing off against Longshot, who's got a knife out against her. So what happens here is that they recognize, Magma's worried here. Sunspot, suppose when they reach their true ages, because they're aging up now, this enchantment becomes permanent. They'll be locked into these cruel and evil patterns forever. And Mojo now makes his appearance from atop this platform watching. And is that so bad a thing, he says, to be moulded as you bratlings so nearly were? in the image of the Wizard of the Wild Ways, Mojo. So that all occurred in New Mutants Annual #2. So Spiral here is ambivalent about her service to Mojo, as she thinks here they cheer him as they once did me. The limelight, center stage spotlight was mine until lucky Longshot stole it. To see him is to love him, to know him as I did. But she stops herself and she boots him from behind, so he lands on his chin. And Mojo's not happy with this, so he snaps his fingers and teleports Spiral right to him and grabs her by the throat. And this is grotesque. Like, he pushes her nose up and pulls her mouth into this wide grin, and he threatens her, saying, "That's better, now you look happily pleased, as well you should, to discover how absolute my control is over your powers in your life. Soar to the heights you have, little scheming screamer, but never forget who cast you up and raised you down," as he throws her down to the stage. And here, in the shot of the audience, we have got the creature from the Black Lagoon, a favourite film of Art Adams, so we're working a cameo in there of him. We also have Carrie Kelly and her friend from Dark Knight Returns. So her friend there even addressing her as Carrie, just in case we missed that. And Mojo not happy with what she says, that this isn't fun anymore. So Mojo says, "My pets, bring them to me, each and every one. Just the hearts, mind you, leave the shells behind." So that's him ordering the X-Men to kill the audience. So Cannonball thinks he's going to have to act here in order to save people. So he goes to take Mojo out, but Longshot is aging up, and he gets on Cannonball's back. And so unsuccessful there. And now Magma uses her powers against Mojo. Interesting color hold going on here as well on Magma. But it is ineffective because Storm has summoned a monsoon to douse Magma's flames. So how is Mojo going to be stopped? So here we've got Colossus going up against Sunspot. Sunspot getting the better of Colossus, but from behind comes Rogue. And this is an interesting bit of characterization here. She's got this brooch that is holding her very revealing costume together, and it's got Mojo's visage on it. And so it's kind of like this dark side of her, like where she just doesn't care about making skin to skin contact anymore. And this is part of what's going on in this issue with the Mojo indoctrinated X-Men. Their dark shadow sides have come out. But when she absorbs Roberto's psyche, she sees in his memories images of her, but not the person she's become, and this baffles her. And so she's taken out of the fight. And then we've got Nightcrawler merrily teleporting around, getting the better of Wolfsbane. And at this point, Magic decides to use her soul sword against Mojo, but he's wise to her and gets the drop on her. Then we've got Karma here, trying to possess Wolverine, but she's bitten off way more than she can chew. Just take a look here at this grotesque face and how bestial he looks. And of course, like Terry Austin, like earning his money here with all the delineation of Wolverine's back hair as well. Very, very cool and appealing art from Adams and Austin. So Wolverine comes at her, but he's so enraged that it actually breaks Mojo's hold over him, and he roars, "Mojo, what have you done to me?" pulling the helmet off his head. And he cuts free of Mojo's control and decides to go after Mojo. He's got his mind back, and so he takes out Colossus from behind, and he's about to claw Psylocke here when she breaks Mojo's hold over her because of this little budding, flirtatious relationship she's had with Cypher, starting in the previous annual. Something that Claremont would not continue it into the future. Perhaps remembering that Betsy is Captain Britain's twin, and so she's around 29, much too old for Doug. So here we've got Shadowcat going after Mojo, and this is effective. She phases through his chair, and that does disrupt the systems of the chair. And we're told in the narrative captions that there's two screams: the master monsters and the girls, torn from the core of both their beings. The Shadowcat's phasing ability disrupts the biotechnological mecha systems of Mojo's chair. Bad as the experience is for him, it's far worse for his pets. So there's kind of like a psychic feedback here. And here we have Storm, who is battling within herself in terms of whether she is going to be true to Mojo's vision of her, a goddess desiring to be worshipped, or is she going to fight that? Great art here by Art Adams again, and the delineation of the storm clouds as well by Terry Austin. Really, really nice work. Another cameo in the crowd, we've got Charlie Brown here, an adult Charlie Brown. You can see his stripy jumper here and the little lock of hair on his head. And so Storm breaks Mojo's hold on her and strikes at him with a blast of lightning. And then Rogue goes up against Mojo. We're going to see the horrible effects of her attempt to absorb his psyche and powers. You can see her flesh bubbling there. And as she thinks in her thought balloons, there's no end to him. Whatever she takes, or she takes and takes, more than she's ever absorbed from anybody, but so sick and foul and awful. He's an abomination that goes on forever. So Psylocke recognizes that Rogue's no match for Mojo. Here we've got Magneto removing that Nazi helmet. And so, as ever, when one is insufficient to take on an arch enemy, when they combine their powers, they're able to succeed. And that's what's going on here. Everybody attacking in unison. And Nightcrawler gets the idea to grab one of Spiral's swords off her back and stab Mojo in the chest. But just as he does, Mojo teleports away. So he's gone. I really like this particular panel here with the delineation of the energies of Mojo teleporting away. And there is, throughout this issue, fantastic lettering by Tom Warzikowski as well, as ever. And so that's it. Mojo's gone, but Spiral's left behind. And they cut a deal with Spiral after Psylocke wakes her. You can see the rage on her face there. And the deal is they'll kill her unless she dances a spell to turn everything back the way it was, including Storm losing her weather control powers once again. And so, as the narrative caption communicates, the night is still, the play complete, the actors scattered across the Delacorte stage, taking their bows as the audience cheers a spectacular performance. But even as they do, Spiral's dance twists their memories so that come the morning, they'll remember only what should have been, while what actually was becomes no more than a dream, insubstantial as gossamer and quickly forgotten. And this evoking a couple of Shakespeare's plays, Midsummer's Night's Dream, and what Prospero says in one of his final speeches in The Tempest. And here we are, back at the X-Mansion, and the New Mutants kind of reflecting on the adventure as they put their graduation costumes back in the chest up in Storm's attic. And Sunspot's not too happy. He doesn't think there was a victory. He says here to Cannonball, "We New Mutants didn't accomplish a thing. It was the X-Men as usual who saved the day." But Danny says, "What would have happened if we hadn't been there? Mojo would have won. We may not be ready to join the X-Men or take their place, but last night we made a difference." And then we and then they walk off together. And then we switch scene to the swimming pool where we've got the X-Men enjoying themselves the next day. And Longshot here baffled by what is water, and Nightcrawler knocking him into the swimming pool. And then we see Storm atop this crag looking back down at the X-Mansion and the swimming pool. And she's joined by Psylocke and Wolverine. And they note that she's had a haircut, so she's cut her hair to bring out the mohawk again, because, as she says, the style suits her. And she deals with the fact that the weather is no longer hers to command. She says it's for the best. Those reborn powers were a gift of Mojo's. Nothing good would ever have come from them. And here's this key bit. Like Betsy thinks here to herself, "My bionic eyes are a gift," in quote marks, from Mojo. "I should tell the X-Men about them, but suppose then they ask me to leave?" So she doesn't tell them. And, she's wondering about how she doesn't understand how they won. And Wolverine explains that it has to do with who we are and why we're X-Men. Storm says there's more to it than simply possessing superpowers. To be an X-Man means possessing a strength of will, of self-identity that nothing can subvert. Mojo never realized it is something pure and incorruptible in our primal selves that makes us what we are. That is why the original team members were chosen by Charles Xavier as opposed to other mutants who had manifested their powers at that time, and why we specifically were chosen to replace them. It is why you may belong, Elizabeth, and some of the new mutants, despite their courage, may not. For better or worse, being an X-Man means not merely being born a mutant, but a hero. And then up comes the end credit card of MGM Productions, Mojo's giant movies of death. And we've got a little silhouette here, or sorry, not silhouette, but side profile of Mojo, and some screen tone here used by Terry Austin as well. And the spineless ones are delighted. They've enjoyed the show. So here's our last page. And we've got Mojo getting the ratings that it's his highest grossing success. So Major Domo suggests you'll want to do it again next year. But Mojo says never. As he says here, a true artiste never repeats himself. That's why I'm leaving the lucky Longshot with the X-Men. He'll win their hearts and then I'll break them, he says. His presence on Earth will infuriate Spiral delightfully, teach her a lesson. So, he says here, of the spineless ones, they love him, they adore him, and I make them pay for it. Pay-per-view. That's how Mojo earns his money, his riches. And then we've got this little grotesque comic bit here where he ventriloquizes this pig's head, a la Porky Pig, and says, "Badib, badib, that's all, folks, but I'll be back," he says, grinning insanely from behind the pig's head. The end. So there you go. Very, very fun annual. Superb art by Art Adams and Terry Austin. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on X-Men Annual number 10. If you did, please like the video, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.